Welcome back to another live episode of the Relevant Recruiter Show. Today, I'm joined by a good friend, client of mine, John Randolph. John is going to be talking to us today about his journey and his success using the Relevant Recruiter method. John's been in the game for a long time, and I'm going to let him explain it a little bit more to you. And he's got his firm, Benai Consulting Group, focusing on CPAs in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But John, thank you so much for joining me again. If you guys haven't seen it, this is John's second time on the show. So thank you, John. I'm excited to chat with you again, my friend.
Excited to catch up as well. And you know, you're right that our core geographic market is Dallas. But one of the dynamics that's happened over the last year, that's probably a lot of people have seen, is we're probably going to do about 25-30% of our business this year is fully remote roles. So
Nice.
we've started working with clients. In fact, one of the clients that we connected with through the Relevant Recruiter method is probably going to be one of our top 2 or 3 clients this year, is out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So expanding.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Love it. Well, I'm definitely excited to get into your journey and share about the Relevant Recruiter method, but, give a little bit of background, where are you located? Give us a little bit about your recruiting journey before we get into some of the fun stuff.
So geographically, I'm about 75 miles outside of Dallas. People usually say you're in the middle of nowhere, and I tell them no, I'm about 5 miles outside of the middle of nowhere. You get to the middle of nowhere, drive a little farther, and that's where we are. I moved our business in 2018 to a fully remote model and got rid of our office. Have 4 recruiters that work for me, 2 that are employees and 2 that are contract. But everybody's remote and has been remote since 2018. So our focus is we work strictly with locally owned CPA firms. So we don't do any work with any large national, big, multi-office, big 4, top 100 CPA firms. Everybody that we work with, they're guys like you and I that are small business owners that are watching every dime flow out the door. And it's critical that they're not hiring 25 people this year. They may be hiring 1 or 2. Right. So it's hypercritical that the people they add to their team are value people that can bring solutions to their team. So that's a little bit about the business that we're in. I've been doing it for, we're going to stick with a long time, over 30 years. I started when I was 8.
Exactly. I'd say you must have got a young start.
Yeah. We'll just stick to that. But been doing this quite a while, and as I said, when you and I connected a couple of years ago and first started at least just dialoguing, one of the things that constantly was going through my mind was, hey, 3 decades of doing this, and the way that you're, for the most part, doing it today is the way that you did it 3 decades ago.
Right. There's
got to be something different. There's got to be a better way. And we talked for a while and then finally started working together.
Yep. Share a little bit just in specifics, because I know there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, so to speak. I mean, what were the old ways? Like how did you grow your business up to our point working together? And what were some of the frustrations you were going through as a business owner to make you decide, yeah, you know what, I do need to pivot and look at the more modern approach?
Cold calling, a lot of cold calling. In fact, I mean, if there was business sitting on my desk, it was generated from a cold call. Every single order that was on my desk was from a cold call. Now, some of that may have been repetitive business from old clients, people I had relationships with, but those relationships started as a cold call. Candidates, the same way. Candidates were cold call recruiting or off of, post and pray type mentality. Let's put a job on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or Monster Career Builder and let's see what we get in, and then kind of weed through that. Or take your database and run some searches on your database and then start making some calls to those people. So it was very manual in method and in process. And so if I wasn't physically sitting at my desk as a producer, there was not work getting done.
Right. Yeah. The old grind, the old hustle, the hustle way. Right.
Yes.
How many cold calls are you making per week right now for just client development alone right now?
That would be a grand total of 0.
How about on candidate? Because I know candidate usually takes a little bit more outreach, but how many candidate cold calls are you making on per week right now?
I mean, just straight cold call, meaning I got a name and I know that they work in a firm. And other than that, I don't know anything about them. Zero.
Right.
None.
Yep.
None at all.
That's amazing. So essentially it's almost kind of completely shifted the way that the business is being operated and run.
It really is, Donnie. And there's a part of me when I talk about, the client development side of this business and zero cold calls, there's a part of me that kind of cringes when I say that, because there is still that old school part of me that feels
Right.
like there needs to be some of that going on.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it has been a time issue. I just haven't had the time. But the other thing is, I've just found that through a lot of the methodology that we put in place that either was directly from the relevant recruiter or things that we've kind of discovered in an extension of that.
Yep.
There's just some better ways to do things without, the stereotypical call of what I used to jokingly say when I train recruiters, and that is, the phone call where you pick a phone and call, you want to buy a chicken? You want to buy a chicken? You want to buy a chicken? Every single phone call over and over and over.
Right.
And there's no differentiation between you and the other 35 recruiters that have called that client today saying, hey, do you want to buy a chicken?
Right. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the challenge of the market, right? Is everybody, you kind of commoditize yourself at that point when your outreach and your approach is the same as every other recruiter out there. And, let's face it, this industry has no barrier of entry. You don't have to go get a real estate license or a recruiting license. But yet, guys that are seasoned and been doing this for, a long time like you have still have to compete with the guy who's, started the business last week, and nobody's going to raise their hand and say they suck at the job. So
no, not at all. And then, you got the flip side of that where you've got the Manpowers and Adecos and Kellys and Robert Halfs of the world that they can throw numbers at the problem.
Right.
I'll never be able to compete volume wise with one of those firms.
Yep.
So I've got to figure out a way as a small business owner with a staff that I could count on one hand. I've got to figure out a way to compete against those firms. And I can't do it from a volume standpoint because they're always going to be always.
Right. You can't outmuscle that.
No, you can't.
Can't outspend them. You can't out manpower them. You can't do anything. Yeah. Yep. I hear you. Yep. Awesome. So glad we've been able to, help show some ways to leverage that. For those of you that are listening live, go into the comments right now and let me know if you're fired up to hear, some of John's success. From what he shared with me a couple of weeks ago was 6 new clients, over 250K in revenue in the last few months. Let me know, go in the comments. Let me know if you guys are interested in hearing more specifically how he's been able to do that. And I'll tell you, he's going to share here in a minute. That's actually become more than that, just over the last couple of weeks. So John, let me know, and share, I think one of the things that's important for people to know is what is the difference when you're making a cold call with that, prospect. And then when you actually get somebody on your calendar, like can you explain the difference of like how those calls go?
Well, I think that from a cold call perspective, there's no differentiation between, as we said a minute ago, me and the 35 people that guy's getting a phone call from or some kind of communication from. The analogy, or not really analogy, but the picture that I've painted for years, again, training recruiters, is when we call a client that doesn't know us and we say, hi, my name is John Randolph. I'm a recruiter with Benaya Consulting Group. We've seen National Geographic movies or shows where the shark opens its eyes and it has a membrane that goes over its eyes, or they open its mouth and membrane goes over its eyes to protect it. I think clients have the same thing over their ears. The minute they hear, hey, I'm a recruiter, this membrane goes over their ears, they stop listening.
Right.
Because they've heard it from 35 other recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
When that person ends up on my calendar, as one did this past Monday, he and I had communicated via LinkedIn, commenting on my posts, messaging via LinkedIn on a lot of messaging sequences and surveys that I send out.
Right.
We've communicated for 2 years. I've never sold the guy. I've never said, hey, if you have needs, I can fill them. I see them post jobs all the time. They're a CPA firm. All CPA firms need to hire people. I could just ask them, and if they're honest, they'd say, yes, we're hiring.
Yeah.
But I've never once asked for business from him. But he reached out Monday and said, hey, we need to fill at least 2 to 3 jobs, ideally before the end of January. We typically don't work with recruiting firms. I've kept up with your stuff. can you talk, because we might be interested in partnering with you.
Right.
And
That's awesome.
We've got a new client that it's a warm phone call. Well, it really wasn't even a phone call. We had a brief meeting on the phone, and yesterday he was going to be out in East Texas meeting with a client. And so he and I met for coffee yesterday.
Oh, perfect.
Talked for about an hour and a half, and you and I hang up today, and I've got a call at 3:30 with his director of recruiting.
Sweet. That's textbook how it's supposed to go.
That's when you, as the coach and the teacher and the trainer, go, hey, this really does work.
Yep. Absolutely. I love to hear that. And share, you just mentioned prior to that, like I said, you emailed me a couple of weeks ago about, 6 new clients, almost $250,000 of revenue just in the last 6 months. What else has come up since then? You just mentioned the one on Monday, and then you were sharing with me before we got on here that there's another one that came through too.
We've got, when this was going on, we probably had 3 or 4 positions at around a senior director, partner level with a couple of firms. And so I had a messaging sequence going out to potential candidates, at that level, manager, senior manager, directors in firms, throughout the Dallas marketplace.
Right.
And had a response back again from a lady that's been part of my messaging sequence. I went back, anytime someone responds to me, I always go back and look and see how long have I been communicating with them. And hers was 1.5 years.
Right.
No response from her, no communication, but she's seen my stuff for 1.5 years, not counting what she's seen posted on LinkedIn.
Right. And
she reached out to me and said, hey, I'm not looking, but we're looking for somebody just like that. Do you think you could possibly talk to us about helping us? And awesome. Had a conversation with her. And as you know, we've talked about my fee structure in the past. Probably 95% of my business is retained/engaged business. Talked to her the week before Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving, got a signed agreement with her, got an engagement fee from them. When they signed my agreement and sent the engagement fee, she followed up with an email and said, if you can fill the position before December 24th, we will pay you an additional 5% incentive. We got the offer for the candidate yesterday. She accepted this morning.
Beautiful. Another huge win. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. We talked a little bit about it before, about like kind of recruiters being a commodity. How do you feel like you're being viewed in the marketplace? Like, you getting feedback from your clients and candidates, so you kind of start to see and feel the authority that we've been working on over the last, couple of years now.
Donnie, it's hard for me, and I don't know if it's just me or maybe most people are like this, but I have a hard time viewing myself as anything different than anybody else.
Right. I know you don't want to tap yourself on the back, but
The client I met with yesterday, he made me feel great. He said, look, I've been watching your stuff for 2 years. And what I can honestly sit here and say is that you were probably at least 1 to 2 steps ahead of everybody else in your space, just based on the things that you're posting and the comments you're making and the value you're bringing to the table, because everything that you send me has some value to it in regards to what we're doing in our firm. I've spent a lot of time the last year focused on looking at remote work situations, looking at things that are evolving and changing in the marketplace. What does a hybrid work model look like? What does true employee engagement look like? What do those things look like through surveys we've been doing with other firms, trying to get numbers? And we take that data and we send it to clients either via messaging or LinkedIn posts. And it's nice that it's being seen as an expert in the marketplace.
Right. Well, that's awesome. And I appreciate your humble response, but I know that the market's rallying around you. I see a lot of your content and your interaction you get on your content. And obviously, and I think that's one of the biggest things is when people can understand that, like, there's a lot of people that post content on LinkedIn that don't get business from it. And, the way that you've been able to kind of do that and implement that, you're actually getting the people and seeing, people reach out to you, because they view you as that, and you've kind of turned that lighthouse on. And just to kind of, catch the audience up tactically, what John is really, talking about here is running some LinkedIn automated campaigns that are helping him stay top of mind to his clients and candidates, as well as John is consistent with his, creating value-based content to really, establish that authority position in the market. So that's what John's been able to do successfully. John, how often are you posting, per week?
a lot of it depends. If it's a slower week and I've got the time to do it,
Right.
I try to do it at least 4 to 5 times a week. The last couple of weeks with the holidays and me being out of the office all last week,
Right.
plug for my wife celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
So, probably about 1 to 2 times a week the last month and a half. But what I've been able to do, and something that we talked about early on that I had to get my head wrapped around, is repurposing content.
Yeah.
And not having to reinvent the wheel.
It's music to my ears, John. It's music to my ears.
I've gone back and I'll find a post that I did a year ago that was a text post, and I'll read through it and kind of figure out how that is applicable to today, and just do a real quick 2-minute video of it and post that.
Yep.
And still get the same type of response and feedback from people about it.
Right. How would you describe, because I know you've been eager with content. I know we weren't doing much before, we started working together, at least not on the business side. I know I've seen you playing your guitar and stuff online. Yeah. But like, how would you, because I know a lot of people, when they get into this, there's this resistance around, first, what do I have to say? Who's going to listen to me? And then you've got to get over your own hurdles of putting yourself out there. And obviously you're doing video, I guess let's let you be the expert. I mean, what's kind of some advice you would give somebody who's a little bit hesitant about putting themselves out there?
Just do it. I mean, it really is that simple. And I know that we had this conversation 2 years ago.
Yep.
Just do it, because, there's going to be times that you're going to post things and you're going to get very low views. You're going to get very, very low to no comment interaction with it. But the reality is people are seeing it. Right. As it's going through their feed, they're seeing it. And there's this little piece of our brain called the reticular activating system. Yep. And the more that I see something from Donnie Gupton, well, and plus, AI and algorithms do a good job of putting that stuff in front of us when we look at it enough. If I see enough stuff from Donnie Gupton and, oh my gosh, I clicked on one thing today, tomorrow it's going to come up again and then again and then again. And all of a sudden that person starts to see us constantly in their face. Right. And I think it's just a matter of get over yourself and just do it, and understand you don't have to be perfect.
Right. Well, what I think your story is great to be able to kind of connect the dots for, your journey, which is like a lot of people start, which is like, should I do it? Questioning it, self-doubt, doubt about whatever, all the way to here you are now, a year and a half later of implementing this, or I don't even know if it's been even that long, but where you're now, people are reaching out and saying, hey, I follow your content and your stuff is amazing. I think that's just a huge transformation, right? Of being able to go from, hey, you're questioning, putting yourself out there, to now a client going out and saying, John, you're 2 years ahead, and I think that for those that are listening, just kind of take that as confidence, because John had the same thoughts as a lot of you that are afraid to, put yourself out there, and a little bit hesitant about that. And then boom, in a short amount of time, the way the market's viewing you is just absolutely amazing.
I think that part of it also, Donnie, is understanding that there is some work, behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
In regards to reading data, studying your industry, being a student of the game. And when I say the game, I'm not necessarily talking about recruiting. I'm talking about the space that you play in. Right. Whether that is logistics, warehouse, light industrial, medical, marketing, accounting, finance, whatever it is, being a student of the game that you're in. And the wonderful world that we live in today is, if you ask people their opinion, they will give it to you. Whether you want it or not, whether you think it's right or not. And so one of the things that we've done a lot is I run a lot of surveys and a lot of polls, not necessarily on LinkedIn. I do some on LinkedIn, but behind the scenes, right. Creating polls in Google Sheets and just sending that out to 250 people and saying, hey, give us your thoughts on this. Like I sent a message out Monday to 475 CPA firm owners, managers, partners. Very simple question. What percentage of your time, if any, are your employees working remotely today? I'll take that data and then I'll turn around and post something with that on LinkedIn and send that data also to the people on my target list. Mm-hmm. Hey, here's what's going on in the marketplace. Thought you might be interested.
Right. And that's a quick little hack for those of you who are interested in learning one is you don't have to be any smarter than what your market wants. And
No.
it's really doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. And that's what you're doing is you're kind of just finding out what the market wants. Once you figure it out, then you just kind of rinse and repeat the process every quarter, every year, or whatever it makes sense. Right.
Absolutely. My wife homeschooled our kids, and my wife is a hyper smart lady, undergraduate degree, master's degree. But as the kids started to get older, she got really concerned about, can I teach them this?
Right.
And what I told her is kind of what you're saying here. And what I told her is, look, you don't have to be like light years ahead intelligent from the kids.
Right.
You just got to be one day smarter than they are.
100%.
If you know today what you're going to teach them tomorrow, they will never know that you don't know what's getting ready to happen 2 days from now. They'll just think you're the smartest person walking the face of the earth. And it's kind of the same way with in the space that we play in. But again, it calls for reading, studying, asking questions, gathering data, putting that in some place where you can grab a hold of it quickly and then do something with it.
Yep. I love it, man. That's really good stuff. Really good stuff. Thank you for sharing all that. And it's been an absolute joy to watch you on your content journey, and, hearing these successes is just, it's awesome to me. We kind of touched on the automation part, but like, how do you feel knowing that like you have, because I know you're not an independent, but you are a small business, like we talked about, before, you and I both being smaller businesses. Like, how does it make you feel knowing that automation is kind of keeping a loaded pipeline in the background while you're, really focused on filling the roles? Because right now, obviously, it's a busy market.
Absolutely. I mean, it allows a little bit of a breathing room, and not having to stress and worry about every piece of the equation. Now, there's still work that needs to be done on the back end to put those things into an automated cycle. But I'll take last week as a perfect example. The lady that we placed with the firm that I was just referring to that said, hey, if you can fill this for December 24th, we'll pay you an extra 5%. That lady that we placed in that role was part of a messaging sequence to candidates that I loaded into the system the week before I went on vacation last week with my wife for our anniversary. Right. So I set that up. She responded to me through that and said, hey, this looks interesting. I'd like to talk to you about it. I took that information. I sent it to one of my recruiters and said, hey, follow up with this lady, talk to her. This is the role she's interested in. I didn't call her. I wasn't even working last week. I was working, but I wasn't working. But we just closed a little over a $35,000 fee because that was in that pipeline being done and not having to feel the pressure of 100 of these.
Right.
To get that person.
Right. And I know we've talked a lot about the business development side, but you've actually implemented this, and you're finding the effects of this on the candidate side, just like you're saying as well.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, it's a two-pronged approach where we can set something up to connect with people. For instance, I've got a client that's in Seattle, and trying to get people to relocate to Seattle is virtually impossible. So they reached out to us. They're looking to hire auditors on a remote basis. So what we did was I ran a quick search and found out what are the lowest paying marketplaces in public accounting. So we came up with, these are the 10 lowest paying marketplaces in the country. We sent out connection requests to all of those senior audit level people we could find in those markets. Once we got connected with them, then we put them into a messaging sequence and said, hey, would you look at a remote opportunity that would probably be better than where you are today, but let you still stay home and make more money? And we've already closed 2 positions with that firm.
Right. That's it's amazing, dude. I love hearing all this. It's just, you've taken this thing, and like you said, you've implemented what I've taught. You've done that to the T, but you've also taken and made it your own. And that's where my best clients have the success is you're not just working in Donnie's box. You've taken Donnie's box and like made it, John's castle. And I think that's just absolutely amazing, dude. It's remarkable to hear how you're using this on both sides and just the amount of success you guys are having from it.
It's been a ton of fun. I didn't say this to you in the message I sent you a couple of weeks ago, but I wanted to kind of say this to you in this call, so I'll say it before I forget. December 31st, my wife and I sat down and we physically wrote out a check for $75,000. That was to pay off our house.
Beautiful.
And we had no idea where it was going to come from, had no idea how it was going to happen, but that check has sat on my wall since 12/31. We pulled that money out of the account yesterday to send that to the mortgage company.
Dude, that is so awesome. That is so freaking awesome. That is such a huge win, dude.
And I will tell you this, 2 clients paid for that. And both of those clients were clients that we got from the Relevant Recruiter Method.
It's awesome, dude. That is so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That's just cool, dude. I think it's cool. You know, it's amazing what happens when we kind of declare something to, you know, the universe, to God, to whatever we believe in. And we don't know how, like you said, how are we going to get here? And then you go have a year like you've had, and boom, you know, what a blessing for your family.
Absolutely.
Now you're just paying Texas heavy property taxes, huh?
Well, the nice thing about where we live, again, outside of the middle of nowhere, we don't have ridiculous property taxes. Plus, we have an ag exemption because we pull hay off of it. So it's not too bad. It's not too bad at all.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's awesome. You know, we've talked a lot about the financial side, and you kind of touched a little bit earlier, but one thing, you know, I think there's this big, you know, stigma in the industry that, like, in order to be successful in recruiting, you have to be owned by your business. You've got to work 80 hours a week. You don't get weekends off. You know, if you're a true big biller, you know, you better hustle, right? How has this created more freedom for your life? Because that's what this is about, right? If we're making money, obviously you're just talking about paying off a house, but how has this created more freedom for your life?
It's been amazing, Donnie. You know, my kids and now my grandkids and my wife are the biggest priorities in my life. And I do what I do so that I can have the freedom to do things with them. And, you know, for the 2 years, 3 years prior to you and I connecting, it was a grind. I mean, it was a day in and day out grind.
Right.
And my mindset was always, I'm not the smartest in the industry. I'm not going to have the most knowledge in the industry. I place accountants. I'm not an accountant. But the flip side of that, I've always said that there's no one that's going to outwork me. And,
right.
And that was the way it was for years. And I still work hard. I still put in a lot of time. I still take 2 nights a week and work late.
Yep.
But I have more freedom, more time. I've unplugged more this year than I probably have in the previous 3 years. And we're busier than we ever have been, ever.
Yeah. And that's great. And I think it's important too, like, as I say that like, hey, just because you're working 80 hours a week doesn't mean you're at least working 40, right? I mean, you're still a grind that goes a part of it. But, you know, I think there's so much opportunity out there when you do have a system in place and you are leveraged through automation and you've got things working for you around the clock, like content, you know, that it does create more freedom for our life, but it doesn't make necessarily crossing the road or crossing the finish line with clients or candidates easier. It just makes for more opportunity and more energy, you know, to do those types of things. And it doesn't equal easy. So,
and I think that one of the things that has happened over the last couple of years is where I'm still working hard, but, you know, I hate to sound rote, but I'm working hard, but I'm working smarter. And what I mean by that is the interactions that I'm having with people are more valuable. They're not cold call surface interactions. They're engaging conversations, even if they're not about, do you have a job? Can I fill it for you? Are you looking for a job? Do you want to make a change? Every single candidate that or every single potential person that I connect with on LinkedIn, I engage with in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Right.
So, you know, it may be as simple as, you know, scanning through this guy's profile and saw he went to Ole Miss and sent him a quick email and said, "Hey, how's the love affair with Lane Kiffin going?"
Yeah.
You know, and have a little bit of dialogue like that with somebody, and just talk through those things. And earn the right in the future to be able to ask that person. I mean, I'll get messages back from people, Donnie, just like I'm sure everybody else does, that say, I'm not looking, I'm not interested. And I'll personally respond back to those people and say, hey, I appreciate your response. Thank you so much. Would it be okay if I keep you on my radar for quality opportunities to come across my desk every now and then? I'm not going to blow your email up with something every week, but if it's okay, can I stay in contact with you this way? I've yet to have somebody say no.
Right.
Everybody says, yes, please do. Right. Absolutely. Sure. So, it's still, there's a lot of things flowing out of the system, but they're more engaging the conversations that I am at. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is great. What would you say, John, there's going to be a lot of people that are listening, to this interview here that are probably on the fence with working with me and going through a program, which obviously is work. What would your advice be to them?
Take the step, make the investment, and just do it. It has been the single biggest difference, game changer in who we are and what we do, with the engagement of people and turning our business from a do you want to buy chicken? Do you want to buy a chicken 100 times a day phone call to more engaging conversations with people, more value-based conversations with people that ultimately end up making money. Yep. It doesn't happen overnight. It's just like anything else. You've got to put in the time, you've got to put in the effort, you got to put in the work, and you've got to be willing to be vulnerable just a little bit.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing. What is, you mentioned this big goal that you had for this year, and it's not December 31st yet, so I'm not going to hold you to that.
No, it's not.
What are you kind of fired up for now that we head into 2022? You've got a ton of momentum in the business. What excites you the most?
I don't know if it excites me or scares me, but one of the things that we've been talking about is possibly launching a contract side of our business. A contract temporary staffing component to what we do. We did a little bit of that this past year, and again, that was something that came from the relevant recruiter process that we had in place. I had a guy who was part of our messaging sequence that reached out to me the week before April 15th and said, hey, we are dying. We're 3 people short. They've moved the tax deadline in Texas to June. I don't know if you guys ever do any contract work, but I need to hire 2 people on a contract basis. And I, being the person I am, immediately responded and said, absolutely.
Honey, we need to find a provider now.
Absolutely. And, I hung the phone up, and I've been in the industry so long, I called probably about 5 or 6 of my friends that are in the temp staffing world and said, hey, do you have contracts that I can borrow and basically plagiarize from you? And oh, by the way, if I get good enough margins, can you run the payroll through your business?
Right.
And one of them immediately got back to me, and we probably made this year probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $24,000, $25,000 on contract stuff that we weren't out selling.
That's insane.
So, we're looking at that as a piece of the business moving forward in 22, and have no doubt that the relevant recruiter method, it will be a key component of that to get the word out to our potential customers.
Yep.
Of, hey, we can help you, and we can do it at a high quality and high level of service without the ridiculous markup and burden that you're going to eat from account temps. Right. That's going to kill your bottom line, especially with a smaller local public accounting firm that just can't afford to pay 100% markup.
Yep. That's awesome, man. That is exciting. It's a whole another revenue stream for you guys, and hopefully a nice steady revenue stream. I know that's definitely the benefit of having some contract work going.
Hey, it was nice during those, after the cold weather we had here and things kind of slowed down, and still trying to figure out what was going to happen post-COVID in those months of April, May, June, July, where every single week we had money coming in from a client that we had 2 temps out working for.
Right. Yeah. No, that's huge, man. That's definitely huge. That'll drive the revenue even up more in 2022. So Looking forward to hearing that. Hopefully we'll be having you back on the show next year as well again.
Yep.
But, thank you, John, for hanging with me. Thank you for being an open book and sharing your story and doing it so candidly. And I appreciate your time. What's one last little piece of advice you'd give anybody that's listening here?
Don't be afraid to fail.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to fail. You're going to fall down. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do stupid things. I mean, I'm sure you've had people talk to you about this through the program, as I have. I've sent messaging sequences out to people that have nothing to do with what that person does. And they reply back with a snide comment. And, first of all, you feel like a fool. Second of all, you kind of get bent out of shape. You start to type a response and realize, no, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Or it's somebody that does play in your space. And you just fall on your sword. You respond to them and say, hey, I apologize.
Yep.
It was a mistake. Just don't be afraid to fail. It's going to happen. But there's, I've got recruiters that work for me for years. I've told my recruiters, there's nothing you can say to a client short of cussing that I can't fix.
Right.
And so I've had to buy into that mentality that, hey, what I'm posting on LinkedIn, what I'm sending in a message, short of cussing, there's nothing you can't overcome. Short of cussing somebody out, there's nothing you can't overcome or fix.
Absolutely.
Just
I love it, man.
And deal with it.
Love it. Don't be afraid to fail. So, well, thank you, John, again for joining us. Those of you that listen, if you guys want to see how the relevant recruiter method can apply to your business, head over to donniegepton.com/book a call and grab a time there that works for you. We can talk about you, your business, kind of where you're at now, where you're looking to go. We'll share exactly how the relevant recruiter method can apply to your business. If that's all you want, you just want the information, you can take it and run. But if you want the formal coaching and the results that John's after, give me a shot and we will get you to cross that finish line. Thank you guys so much. John, thank you.
Thank you, Donnie.
We'll see you all in a couple of weeks. This is my last live video from this location. I'll be moving. So you might see me offline for a couple of weeks, but I'll be back hitting it heavy at the beginning of the new year. We'll talk to everybody soon.